everybody. Welcome to, what are we called again?
Wild Podcast.
We are back, and hopefully podcasting will, it'll be like putting on an old leather gauntlet. It'll be like we were never gone for 2 months.
And we'll remember it the same. It's just as easy as falling off a bicycle.
That's right. Or falling off a castle's battlements.
True.
Yeah, here we are. We're back. My name's Adrian. I'm joined as ever by my incredibly busy co-host, Rod Barnett.
Hello, everyone.
How's it been for you, Rod? You've been up to a couple of things lately.
Oh, well, yeah.
Just a couple.
Couple of things going on. Got another commentary track to record here in the next couple of weeks. Mum's the word on the title, of course. And it's a fairly obscure one, but one that I have already podcasted about. And that will not help anyone figure out what that would be, considering I've been podcasting for 15 years.
Is it that, what was it called? Was it that really terrible last film that Paul Naschy made in Amsterdam?
Oh, God, no.
I'd love to hear you do a commentary on that one.
You know, that has been stated on another commentary track just recently recorded, but the answer is always going to be no.
I seem to remember when you guys covered that one, I was campaigning for you two to do a live stream where we all watched it together and you talked us through it. I think that would have been fun.
Oh, I could have that I would be willing to do because I could conceivably drink and I don't have to think that I'm wasting someone's money by doing that. Yeah.
I mean, lockdown made us think of all kinds of crazy things. But yeah, it's been commentary season this last couple of months. I mean, you and I have done 3 together.
Yeah.
You've done some more and you've got another one coming up.
Yeah. Couple of different gothics that one with you, one with someone else, and then man, I think I've actually lost track. But yeah. There's all kinds of goodies coming up in the near future that we're privy to the information about, but we just cannot say anything quite yet if we want to get jobs in the future.
It's very exciting. Well, we can talk about some of the ones because at least some of the things that we've done in this 2-month break have already been announced.
Yes.
So we can tell everybody that we did a commentary for Alien 2 on Earth, aka Alien Terror, aka that potholing movie.
Yeah. Every time you call it that, I don't know if you're aware of what pothole means colloquially here in the States at all.
Oh, is it rude?
No, a pothole. Okay. A pothole is a hole in asphalt, a hole in the road.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's the same here. Holes in the road are called potholes, but also going down into the caves is also called potholing.
I did not know this.
That's confusing.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kino are doing that, and I noted with interest that the extras for their new release are me, you, and Eli Roth.
Oh my, that's a strange combination.
Yeah, that's quite funny. So we've done that one. I think that's coming out in June, and we did a commentary for the film called either Curse of Simba or Curse of the Voodoo. Which is a black and white British 60s thriller by Lindsay Shonteff. And that is on a double bill box set with Devil Doll, the much better known of the 2 films. From Vinegar Syndrome.
Excited to see that set because those films, they're underloved in general. I think it's good to raise their profile.
Yeah. Devil Doll especially is great. So
yeah.
And I think the version that I've seen is slightly different. I think the version they've got coming out is a kind of full strength, fully uncut version that's got a few extra bits and pieces in that wasn't in the one I've seen before, I think. Yeah, so anyway, Vinegar Syndrome have done that one, so that's out end of May, I think.
Yeah, here not too many weeks. It's coming up, yeah.
So yeah, and then we did a third one, which hasn't been announced yet. So that's very exciting. And I also did on my own two video essays. Well, I did the audio for two video essays, which are both for imprint, and one of those is going to be on I'm getting classy. It was for the Richard III, Laurence Olivier
Oh,
release.
well,
I
Mr.
know.
Nose in the Air.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm upping my class quota. So, but then just to bring things back down to earth, I also did one for Devil Girl from Mars.
Oh, there.
So that balances it out. I
It
think.
really kind of does. You're right.
So yeah, it's been a fun old time, and I guess the other things and the things that you've been working on. So the ones that you've done without me, are any of those announced or not yet?
No, not as yet.
Okay.
I've got three different ones in the hopper that have not been announced yet. Not sure when they will be. Really don't.
No.
A couple of them are Paul Naschy related, so there is that. I'll throw that out as a little hint. But yeah, got a few more. They will be announced in the coming couple of months, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's funny how some of this stuff, we did that one last year for Flesh and Fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been the best part of a year and still hasn't come out.
But it's at least been announced now.
It's coming out soon, yeah, finally. But then, but then other things like these, within 2 months we've recorded it, edited it, and it's been announced. It's so kind of random how this stuff goes. But,
I know. But then again, Adrian, there are tales you and I could tell, but won't, about the strange situations in which we have ended up doing commentary tracks for different films. So
yeah, and there's one that we were asked to do maybe nearly 2 years ago now, and we're still waiting for the film.
I know that we've not heard a peep since. I did extensive research and copious piles of notes, and it's just sitting there gathering dust.
I read the novelization and everything,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna have to just do it all again because I've forgotten. Yeah. Anyway, still, we're not complaining because it means we get to get paid to talk about movies,
which few people get to do.
Yeah, and getting paid by them to talk about movies helps to keep the podcast going for free, I guess. So
this is true.
It's all good. Anyway, so I'm also glad we're finally doing another episode because I think we'd only got 3 films in on our Rapiers and Ruffles season. So it's good to get back to it.
And I'm very excited to get back to this stuff. This is I think I'm beginning to remember when watching this week's film, or should I say this episode's film, that why I love these films so much, because hit or miss, in general, I tend to love these movies, and when one really reaches its stride, when one is really on its game, I just sit there with a giant smile on my face the whole time.
Yeah, this is a great film. So let's get straight into it. So in this episode, we are talking about, well, it's funny how the first couple of films were Italian in terms of their history, and they were about the Borgias and all that sort of stuff. This time we've headed to France to tap into a classic set of characters. This bears no relation, I'm sure, to any of the actual books.
No. This is definitely an apocryphal tale. Yeah,
takes the names and the characters and creates a whole new fun story. So we are talking about a film called Il colpo segreto D'Artagnan, or The Secret Mark of D'Artagnan. Cue the music.
You're relentlessly awful on that subject.
Can't help it. Every time it's D'Artagnan. One for all and all for one. Anyway, Thank you, Oliver Onions. No, here's the real theme. It's very much what you would expect from this kind of movie. Here it is. It's all very Errol Flynn and that kind of stuff, and
Exactly.
Eric Korngold, and it's good stuff. But yeah, so we are with the only two of the Musketeers. D'Artagnan frequently refers to the other Musketeers, but we only get to meet two of them in this movie.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Aramis and Athos were off on some other adventure, so no problem.
They were just down on the beach somewhere in the south of France.
Yes.
It was quite good actually that we're doing a French film, because I was just in France a week ago. So this all feels very well timed for me, that they're talking about Paris, and you've got these sort of stock shots of Paris. And I was just in Paris a week ago watching my son run the marathon.
Oh, okay.
Which was really cool. And then it's funny, I came home and then almost everything I watched had Paris in it. Maybe it's just that when you watch a lot of European films, Paris tends to come up.
Well, I mean, we should reassure people that although this film is set in France, it's an Italian-French co-production, so it's pretty much shot in Italy.
Yeah. Most of the cast are Italian, from what I can tell, apart from our star,
who is an American,
George Nader. Yeah. Now you do love your Musketeers.
Yes, I do.
And I know that the original, like the 70s, Dick Lester films are your all-time favorites. So
I love those. I love those. Well, it's one giant movie, so I absolutely love that. Yeah.
So how do you feel the characterization here compares with those films?
Given that this is a full decade earlier than the Richard Lester films of the 70s, pretty much in keeping. It just shows how the characterizations really do seem to have been taken from the original novel in the first place. It feels like a D'Artagnan. This takes place between the original Three Musketeers novel and the 20 years later sequel that Dumas wrote. So there's 2 decades there that you can fill up with Musketeer stories, and there have been a few. So seek out the ones that you're going to enjoy the most, and that's pretty great, because quite honestly there are so many adventures that you can have, and this is just another example of it. I think that it feels very much in keeping with the tone that I want in a Musketeers film. The characterization of D'Artagnan is of someone who, by the end of that first novel, or the end of the Four Musketeers, if you want to look at it that way, you get to the point where he's matured enough. He's now no longer the callow the callow youngster who was brash enough to stick his nose into Paris Musketeer society and expect not to get it chopped off. And he's more seasoned, he's more mature, and he's kind of leading the dance in this story. And I like the portrayal of Porthos as well. Yeah. I think it's once again very much in keeping with how I see that character, in that he's approached by D'Artagnan and basically says, "Look, I've retired. I'm really kind of out of this," and D'Artagnan knows exactly what to dangle in front of him to get him to go along. So,
and what I like about this, there's a couple of moments in the film, especially there's one scene where they have to be really quiet. They're going to go and do a thing, and they've got to be really quiet. Mm-hmm. And then they start doing it, and then they're like, "Ha ha! Ho 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 ho! Ah, ha 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 ha!" I'm like, guys, you just said you had to be really quiet.
Hush, hush.
They can't help themselves. They love doing it all so much. They're just like, yes, ha ha.
And there are so many moments in this movie that really they feel like something out of either the Richard Lester films or out of the original novel. In that, for my favorite example being at one point they are sneaking their way into a castle, and they're using a ladder, and they have a pretty decent plan. But it's not a plan that they explain to us. We just have to watch them do it and then realize, okay. And you can see how it can physically work until they realize the ladder's too short for the last little thing they need to do.
Yeah.
And Porthos's brilliant idea is for him to just lift the damn ladder straight up over his head as far as he can get it with D'Artagnan on top of it. It's exactly that kind of thing that could have very easily been in the original story, because it's like, well, we don't really have any other choice. We're going to have to try something ridiculous to see if I can manage it.
Yeah. And did I miss something? Like all of a sudden they had a ladder, and I was like, where did they get that from?
Oh well,
it just appeared. Or
well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the scene before that, they were going to where they were going, and then they knew they were going to need a ladder, so they picked up a ladder on the way. It's like those pesky, silly questions about, well, where did Indiana Jones get that horse? Doesn't matter. He needed a horse. We have edited now. Time has passed. He found a horse. Shut up.
That's true. That is true. Let's talk a little bit about who's in this, and then we'll get to the plot. Or let's maybe start with the director.
Yeah.
Another one, like so often on this podcast, a director whose name I was completely unaware of. This is Siro Marcellini, and another director with quite a relatively short list, actually, of credits.
Yeah, it seems that
mainly Peplum films.
Well, he began his professional career as a theater director before moving into film, and he worked as an assistant director while doing theater directing, and then moved into the main director's chair in film. He only did about a dozen films, and so what I'm assuming is that he just felt that the theater world was a better fit. I look at his list of movies and then I'm thinking, well, I think I've seen Slaves of Damascus, and I think I want to see his other movies. I want to see The Devil's Musketeers, that's for sure. Just the title alone from 1959, I think that's one I need to check out.
Yeah. And there's some westerns in there too.
Yeah, Lola Colt, which, if I'm not wrong, may be the first time that any western was made featuring a black woman as the central character.
Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with it, but of course, like all these things, now I want to see it.
Yep.
And he also made a gangster film starring Klaus Kinski in 1969,
which, once again, somehow I've not seen. So the fact that he only made a dozen films, I guess that would make it easier for us to have somehow missed them. I think that would be fun to check out, but it's weird that, given who's in it, we really don't know anything about it.
And according to the internet, he is still alive and is now 103. But that might just be
I'm beginning to doubt that. Yeah,
where he is anymore. Yeah, intriguing. But yeah, so given his relative lack of experience, so that makes the fact that this is a really great movie even better. And it's quite early on. It's 1962, so obviously the Peplum had been going for 2 or 3 years by this point, but there was still a lot more to come. They were still making these movies for a good 2 or 3 years. But he just made basically one more Peplum, and then just started doing other things. But yeah, then other people that are involved with this film, again, I'm not really familiar with any of them apart from George Nader.
Yeah.
The cast is pretty much all people I've never heard of. But yeah, George Nader, you must be very... I mean, he's an American. He did B movies. You must have come across his films lots of times.
I became aware of him mainly because of the Jerry Cotton Eurospy films he made in Germany, and a few years after this. Because they made about, I think 8 of them, 7, something like that. They made enough of them that they made a mark that is is still kind of something that genre fans can sink their teeth into. I mean, he's an American actor who basically he was when he was originally brought onto the screen in the 50s. He he's a handsome man, well built, and good at the acting thing. And so the idea was that he would eventually kind of segue into the kinds of jobs that similar actors would, lead roles of a type. But what he became most famous for off the bat was that he was the male lead of Robot Monster in 1953, which
there was a male lead in Robot Monster.
Why, yes, yes, there was. There were two of them actually. One was in a gorilla suit.
It's not. Yeah, it's not the male lead is not the part you remember from that movie.
Nope. Although George Nader does spend a fair amount of the film with his shirt off, which I'm sure enhanced a certain audience. But since that time, he was in several movies. I mean, quite a few movies, like 3 or 4 movies a year throughout the 50s, until he began to realize that this wasn't really going to go where he wanted it to go. And so he dipped his toe, strangely enough, with this movie
this was his first one.
In European films,
Yeah, and became a star.
Mm-hmm. Now, he went back and forth a little bit. He was making films in Europe throughout the 60s, especially when he hit that tasty vein of the Jerry Cotton films.
Yeah.
But he was also at the same time working on American television, just like he had been in the years before that. I mean, he's in everything from Laramie and the Andy Griffith Show to Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Burke's Law. These are all very big TV shows. And he was even in there are even a couple of television shows where he was the lead, but they just didn't get past one season essentially.
Oh, right.
Yeah. There was the Further Adventures of Ellery Queen, which only did 25 episodes. The Man in the Challenge the following year, which did one season of 36 episodes. Yes, people, back then, one season was 30 some odd episodes. Not like it. Wow. It's not like it is today, people. And then, after that, they took another shot with him in a show called Shannon, which is another 36 episode in and out kind of thing. So he had a certain cachet as someone that could be counted on, but it's really only in Europe where he hit the big time and was making was a star, especially in those Jerry Cotton films. He also, people might recognize him also from Million Eyes of Sumeru from 1967, and maybe even House of Thousand Dolls, which is possibly Vincent Price's weirdest / worst film. I don't know. It's a tough call. But his last movie was Beyond Atlantis, which was an Eddie Romero film shot in the Philippines, and he retired from filmmaking after that because something happened to his eyes, and he realized that it just wasn't going to be something he could do anymore. So he retired and lived out the rest of his life doing things other than movies, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at his obituary, because he died in 2002. And he had a serious car accident in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that was kind of when he stopped acting. But he was very good friends with Rock Hudson.
Yep.
And in fact, according to this article anyway, he was in a relationship for a long time with Rock Hudson.
Well, that's just it. Apparently that is not really true, because who he was in a relationship with, because George Nader, although not openly during his career, he was a gay man in Hollywood, but he was not actually in a relationship with Rock. He was in a very long-term relationship with Rock Hudson's kind of his secretary, right-hand man.
Yeah.
And so when that's why a lot of talk started when Rock Hudson passed away in 1985, and George Nader and his secretary were the recipients of Hudson's estate, which was, like 20 some odd million bucks. And so there was this thought that, well, apparently they were lovers. And it's like, no, that's not really the way that worked out. But one could understand why you would think that way. But
yeah, interesting.
But somebody he's somebody who probably deserved a better career than he had. But I'm just really glad that the '60s allowed him to find that European vein of glory and just kind of make all those wonderful films. Because if you've not seen the Jerry Cotton movies, if you like Eurospy films, they are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, really? Oh, they're a blast. I've only been able to see, I think, 4 of them. And it's been a lot of years since I revisited them.
I need to have a look. It's often hard to find these things with subtitles, but I'll see what I can find. It does say here, actually, he came out of retirement in April 2000 to go to a Jerry Cotton retrospective in Germany. I bet that was fun.
I would have gone. I would have loved.
Yeah,
I'd love to have shaken. I would love to have shaken his hand, get his autograph.
Yeah. He also published a sci-fi novel called Chrome in 1978.
I know, which is I'm kind of curious. I only recently learned about that when I started researching this film. I was completely unaware that he had written a science fiction novel.
Yeah, it says it's groundbreaking for its treatment of a homosexual romance between 2 robots. I've just looked it up online, and you can buy it on Amazon for about 90 quid. So maybe worth looking around your secondhand bookstores.
I will look around. I'm not going to lay out that kind of money. To be honest, I'm probably more interested in another book he wrote called The Perils of Paul, about the gay community in Hollywood. But it wasn't published until after his death, and that may have been a request of his. I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay. Gosh. Yeah. So an interesting guy. In this film, much as I enjoyed his performance, I don't know about you, but I found it hard to keep track of who everybody was, because all the men have all got the exact same beard.
Okay, I wanted to bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because
they're all got the same beard and the same costume.
I know.
And the same hat. And I kept getting a little, and also the copy we're watching is murky. I mean, it's good. It's in widescreen.
Yeah, thank goodness.
But it's a bit murky, especially when it's dark. And there's quite a few scenes at night. And I just kept getting confused about who I was looking at. So I know he as D'Artagnan was good in this movie, but there were times where I wasn't sure if it was him or not.
Well, the only times when it probably wasn't him and you thought it might be was when some of the more difficult stunt moments were on screen, and they're definitely using that hat to hide the face.
Oh yeah, there's some good stunts in this film.
There's some really good. I enjoy the fencing sequences. I enjoy the action sequences. This is a really entertaining film of this type. There's a lot of fun to be had here.
Yeah. I reckon there was one stuntman who had this particular trick up his sleeve, because they do the same thing in the film 3 times, and I reckon it was probably the same guy, which is where there's a fight happening up on a wall with D'Artagnan, and then the guy who's been stabbed throws himself off backwards, flips in the air, and then lands on a wooden, like a chair or a table.
Yeah, or a table. Yeah.
And then hits the ground. And it's all in. It reminded me of the kind of Hong Kong Jackie Chan type stuff where there's no airbag. They just flip down and hit the ground. And it's all
in one shot.
Yeah.
Nobody's faking anything.
No, one of them, the breakaway thing doesn't seem to cushion his fall at all. Just hits the ground.
I'm just assuming that the stuntman is wearing some extra padding on his back, because it looked rough.
We see that same stunt at least 2 more times. I think it must have been the same guy. That was his thing that he got paid extra for.
Could have been.
So they just got him to do it again in a different costume. But yeah, so he's D'Artagnan. You mentioned Porthos, so we should briefly mention the actor Mario Petri.
Yeah.
Who plays him, and also not a massive film career.
No, but there's a reason
peplums.
For that. He didn't do a lot of movies because I think doing movies was a sideline for him, because he was a very well regarded Italian operatic bass baritone
Oh.
who did a lot of that. His reputation for playing Don Giovanni on stage was legendary. He sang throughout Europe and was often called upon to take on those kind of baritone roles. He only did, like, I think maybe a dozen and a half movies, and almost all of them are peplums to one degree or another, or Rapiers and Ruffles films like this. But on stage as an opera singer, he was beloved.
Mm. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, he's in some great ones as well, like Blood of the Warriors, Hercules Conquers Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
Executioner of Venice, which I think we mention in every episode.
Yes.
Yes. He's in one of those Sandokan films as well. But yeah, I didn't realize he was an opera singer. I mean, he's definitely got the shape
Yep.
of an opera singer.
But the thing is, I don't know. I don't know that we're hearing his actual voice in this movie, so I'd really like to hear what he really sounds like.
Mm. Oh, interesting.
Well, everybody ends up dubbed. I mean, this is we're watching. What was this? I think the dub we get to see on this, the one that's on YouTube, is in French, and it has English subtitles. So I'm pretty sure that's probably not his voice.
That's true. There's another classic character from the Musketeers films with Cardinal Richelieu.
Yeah.
Played by. Now, normally, you have to forgive me because it's been a while since I've seen a Musketeers film. He's generally a bit of a bad guy, right?
In general, the Musketeers and Richelieu were pretty much always at loggerheads, and that's why I was glad that this film goes to great pains to set up why D'Artagnan is willing to essentially work for Richelieu. It's because he's well aware he's there with the king.
Yeah.
And this is because the Musketeers are the king's men, and so the king is working with Richelieu to handle this particular threat to the throne, and that's the reason why he's willing. D'Artagnan's willing to enlist his friend and to actually work on behalf of Richelieu, because for once they're actually on the same side.
And you've all seen this guy, Massimo Serrato.
Oh yeah,
he is in so many films. Spanning decades. Very recognizable.
It's insane. Well, we've seen him in a few films just doing this podcast.
Yeah, The Humanoid. He's in The Humanoid.
Uh-huh.
That was the first thing I spotted. But yeah, he's in so many films. But even just things, like mainstream stuff as well, like The Omen, Don't Look Now.
I know.
Films like that. He's in Jally,
Convoy,
Autopsy.
Busters, Bloodstained Shadow, Killer Nun.
Yeah. Killer Nun. Yeah. Wild Wild Planet, of course.
Well,
he's one of the bad guys, I think, in Wild Wild Planet.
He's got the face for it, with or without the facial hair. So yeah,
I forget now. But yeah, 10th Victim as well. Yeah, he's just one of these guys who does all the whatever films are popular, he's in them. Whatever genre you're making movies in, get this guy in, and
he will bring something. He will bring
scenes.
something to the role, at least as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of there's a bit of love interest in the film we should mention. The two main women who obviously become matched with D'Artagnan and Porthos are Diana and Carlotta.
Yes.
So Diana is, now let me see if I can get this right. So she's got a wicked uncle who's the Duke de Montserrat. Is that right? And then she's the daughter, the niece, and he's looking after her, but she's got all the money.
So yeah, and Carlotta is the servant.
And the Carlotta's, like a maid in waiting or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So Carlotta is played by Magali Noel, who, according to the IMDb anyway, her name sounds German. I think she may have had French parentage, but she was born in Turkey.
Her father, I think, was in the diplomatic service. So
okay, that explains it. She's in some classic films like Zed and Rafifi AmeriCorps.
Yeah, well, she's in
she
three. She's in three Fellini films and was for a while considered his muse.
Right. Yeah, she definitely looked familiar. But again, with the slightly murky print we're watching, I can't trust myself. I think, oh, do I recognise her? Maybe not. I'll tell you what film I have seen her in though.
What?
There's a Swedish sex comedy called The Lustful Vicar, directed by Torgny Wickman.
Of course. What
this
else?
This is about the descendant of a witch who was burned at the stake, puts a curse on the priest of the village as vengeance, and this curse is that he has a constant erection. And the film is set during a time of war, so there are no other men in the whole village. So there's the vicar and there's all these horny women, and they're all trying to help the vicar before the archbishop comes to visit.
Oh my god! Well, see, I thought the most difficult conversation we were going to have about this actress was that she was in a Toto film called Toto and Cleopatra, and she played Cleopatra. But no.
Oh, yes.
No. You found the Constant Hard-On film, so good for you.
Yeah, well, it's because I've seen that one. Because last summer I went to the festival in Sweden called Wickman Week, which was all about Swedish exploitation film, and it was based around Torgny Wickman because he also did some Christina Lindbergh films and stuff like that. But so in preparation, I did watch The Lustful Vicar.
In preparation,
yeah, it is actually pretty funny.
That's a phrase that I've not quite heard, bent in that direction before. I'm proud of you.
When you're a film historian, you have to sometimes,
twist
dig
yourself
really
into
deep.
various shapes. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, she's in much better films like La Dolce Vita and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, interesting that she's still relatively young in this one. I think she's only about 30. But yeah, so I guess she's part of because it was a French co-production, that would be where she came in. But Diana is Italian, Alessandro Panaro. Was there anything from her work that you recognised? Thought she was beautiful.
She's absolutely gorgeous. Yes.
Yeah.
As far as her other films, I mean, she was in quite a few. I mean, there was a massive break where she really kind of stopped to go off and to raise children and have a different life. About near the end of the 60s, but there's Executioner of Venice again.
Oh,
Son of Captain Blood I've seen, but it's been so long I can't really remember her. Ulysses Against Hercules I know I've seen, but once again I'd have to rewatch it. Rocco and His Brothers, I've seen that.
Oh yeah, okay.
But basically I look at I have my standard fear in that, like every pretty woman in Italy during this period of time, she ended up in a Toto film, and so that immediately gives me the hives. But still, she was in a number of films, especially in the 60s, that I have a lot of curiosity about, but I've only seen a handful of them, and they're of the genres that you would expect.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to find a way to work another Toto film into the podcast at some point.
No, we don't.
I say another. We've never done a Toto movie.
We do not.
I watched it.
It's a no Toto zone. I think I may have stipulated that in the contract we filled out.
When we did Castle of Blood, I did watch the Toto movie that was on the same set.
And thank you for that. I did not want to. So yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So, okay, that's covered the main cast, I think. Shall we try and do a plot summary? Now, the film was really well distributed from what I can tell. I've got some reviews. So I can use a plot summary from one of those reviews.
Cool. What do they say about it?
So this is from the review in Kinematograph Weekly, April 1963. So unlike some of the other films we've done, this actually came out not that long after it was released in Italy. Unlike some of the things we've looked at where it's like 5 years later it finally turns up. So it was in UK cinemas in 1963. where it received a U certificate. Now, according to the BBFC, there were some cuts, but I couldn't tell you what the cuts were.
Okay.
Because I don't know. But it was cut to get a U, distributed by Columbia. So, relatively big. There was some effort behind getting this distributed. Okay, here we go for a plot. Stop me whenever you think I've missed something important. So Cardinal Richelieu, I know I keep pronouncing that wrong. How would you say it?
The same way you just said it.
Okay, so we're both doing it wrong, I'm sure.
If I'm pronouncing a foreign name, a name I'm unfamiliar with, in a certain way, I'm probably a bare minimum of 30 to 40% off, and possibly more.
Right, so you've got Cardinal Richelieu, France's King Louis XIII's advisor, has knowledge that there is a secret movement to overthrow the king. D'Artagnan, a brilliant swordsman, and his friend Porthos are instructed by Richelieu to track down the king's enemies. Now, already that's a bit wrong, isn't it?
Yeah. That's not.
D'Artagnan isn't instructed. D'Artagnan just goes and asks Porthos to help him.
Yeah.
Porthos, I don't think, ever meets Richelieu in the whole film.
Nope. Which is probably for the best, because I don't know how well he would react to being associated with history.
Him now. So the film opens with this great scene where D'Artagnan is infiltrating a secret meeting, which he manages to do several times throughout the movie. He's pretty good at this.
Well, when everybody has the same facial hair, it makes it easier.
Yeah, it's very easy. Yeah, he beats this guy over the head, steals his monk's robe. They're all disguised as monks or priests, and then goes into this church to listen to this plot. So basically, the Duke of Montserrat, who is a man of the court, he is basically plotting. Now, what is it? This isn't written down in here, so I'm having to remember. The king's mother is involved in a plot to replace the king with somebody else.
With another member of the royal family. His brother.
Is it with his brother, right, that's it. And they are over the border in... Oh, where were they? Holland?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And so there's an army waiting on the border to come and take on the king and his army. But they need a lot of gold.
They need lots and lots of cash to finance this, because they need to pay mercenaries essentially to help them.
So the Duke says, "Don't worry, I will get the money." And where he's going to get the money from is his niece, who has got all of his brother's money. And it turns out that he killed his brother.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting here. There's basically two examples in this movie of brothers against brothers.
Which once is interesting, twice is somebody making a point.
Yeah, considering that the Musketeers are like brothers, maybe that's the point, that blood brothers don't have the same bonds as
found family.
These kinds of brothers.
Yeah,
these kinds of brothers. Anyway, so D'Artagnan escapes. I think by this point, isn't Porthos helping him? Yes, he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because then we get a flashback. That's true. We start the film partway through the story, and then we get a flashback. So D'Artagnan gets wounded and is rescued by Diana and Carlotta. And before he passes out from loss of blood, he says, "In the name of the king." So that's when she knows she can trust him and hide him in her bedroom.
Or at least she's willing to use that as a hook to hang her actions on when someone is this handsome.
She's never met this guy before, but hey, why not?
Exactly.
Because she knows that her father was killed. Her father also supported the king.
Right.
So she's on the king's side and not on the duke's side. And so the two of them end up, especially with Porthos, who Carlotta falls in love with. There's some great scenes where Diana and D'Artagnan are looking at each other lovingly, and Carlotta is kind of jealous. So she goes over to Porthos, he's like, "Hey," and tries to get him to look at her in the same way. That's a kind of recurring theme as well. but they end up helping each other to bring down the whole plot. I don't really want to say too much because the chances are most people won't have seen this.
And it's a fun film, and it's not hard to see. It is sitting there on YouTube, thank goodness.
It's fun. There's a lot of action. There's crossing and double crossing, and maybe triple crossing. There's a lot of crossing. There's a lot of crossing, particularly with the secret mark. Do you want to explain the secret mark?
Oh, I love that. So when when D'Artagnan is in conference at the beginning of the film with both the king and with Richelieu, and he's agreeing to go along with this and to go on this mission. He has a conversation with him, and he says that when he starts rooting out the conspirators, that he'll mark the ones that he wants to make sure the king and Richelieu will be able to spot by leaving a mark on them, an X. He's going to place an X on their foreheads, and both the king and the cardinal are a little taken aback at this. It's like, well, why would you do this? And what the point is, just so that essentially not to trust these people. Do you know that these are people who are conspiring against you? And I don't want to, I don't necessarily want to kill all of them. So he does that to a couple of people in the course of the film, and in one case it actually pays off, because the guy's talking to the king and the cardinal and is wearing a bandage over his forehead.
Oh, I fell and hit my head on the.
And it's like, really? Let's take a look at that, okay? Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's exactly what we thought it might be. Yeah.
It's very much reminded me of Inglourious Bastards, with the swastikas carved into the Nazi foreheads. So that is, in case we're all wondering what the secret mark is. I mean, it's not really that secret, because this film could have just been called The Mark of D'Artagnan.
And I kind of wondered at first if that may have been an original idea, because that would have made it kind of rhyme with the classic Mark of Zorro. But but they went with secret mark for whatever reason. But hey, I'm good with it, because honestly the movie kind of rocks and I don't care.
And of course there are things that we expect in this film, and we get plenty of swashbuckling.
Yes.
Plenty of duel action. The king, there's a bit where the king doesn't want duels in his room, but he kind of allows it so that D'Artagnan can prove a point, and D'Artagnan loves it. He's laughing the whole time. And there's that bit when him and Porthos have to knock out two guards, and they don't want to erase the alarm. They don't want anyone else to hear them. Porthos is like, don't worry, I can do this quietly. Sneaks up to the guards, grabs the guard, chokes the guard out. The guard is not making any noise, and then Porthos is like, ha 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 ha. I'm just thinking, shh, hush, they're just through the. Hush. What are you doing?
I mean, I understand that this is, you laughing is different from somebody yelling for the guards to come, but still.
Yes, but shush. Still. Yeah. So there's lots of that. There's lots of romance. I don't know what else to say.
It's just such a fun film. It really does feel. Well, here's the thing. I started poking around. It's like the director of this, bears a lot of responsibility for the speed and the dexterity of the action sequences, but the story, I looked up, one of the guys who's responsible for the screenplay is a guy named Milton Krims, Krims, and I looked him up and realized that he had previously written the screenplay for Cross Swords, which is an Errol Flynn, Gina Lollobrigida film from 1954. And I thought, then that makes a lot of sense if this is a guy who wrote these kind of movies before. But then he also wrote a couple of episodes of The Outer Limits, two that I particularly like, Keeper of the Purple Twilight and Counterweight. I was shocked. He wrote 8 episodes of Perry Mason.
Wow.
Yeah. He wrote episodes of Wagon Train. You look at his career and you're thinking, okay, well this guy really kind of knew what he was doing. And I start looking at all these movies that he's credited with, things like Confessions of a Nazi Spy, and it's like, wait a minute, I saw that years ago. That's Edward G. Robinson, and The Iron Curtain, which I saw years ago as well. Prince of Foxes, which is a heck of a movie. If you ever get the chance to see that, from 1949, he wrote the screenplay for Prince of Foxes, and that's, Orson Welles. It's just a heck of a film. It's Orson Welles and Tyrone Power. I recommend that film as well. And so it suddenly I began to realize, because about 30 minutes into the movie, I'm like, wow, this hangs together really well. This is a well told story. And then when I found out that this guy had his hand in the screenplay, I thought, okay, a lot of this makes sense then.
Well, that's a bit of a mystery as to how has his name ended up on this, because you look at his other credits, he was a New York writer. Everything else that he was doing at that time was in America.
I know.
So how is this one just randomly in there in the middle? Like, did he write a screenplay and then it was sold to an Italian company who then rewrote it in Italian? Or because he didn't go to Italy?
I don't know. That's just it.
Weird.
He also, almost the same year, wrote a film that was produced in Europe called Commando. It was a European production, came out in '62, and stars Stuart Granger, and a host of European actors whose faces would be familiar to people like us, but not necessarily their names. And so I just think that there may have been a couple of years there where he was getting jobs to write screenplays for different European producers.
Yeah, that is a bit of a mystery. And it was, like I said, Columbia picked it up in the UK. And in America, it was distributed by a company called Medallion Pictures. Also in 1960, actually a bit later, 1965. And there's a great ad in Variety where they talk about, actually, do you know what? Let me rephrase this.
Okay.
I've just realized, looking at this ad again, that Medallion Pictures picks up the TV rights.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've seen the Medallion thing on TV prints, yeah.
So I tell a lie, this was not the US cinema release, this was the US TV release. And yes, it was... Medallion Pictures had a collection of films for TV in 1965, and this was one of them. So it was on television already, only 2 years after the UK, and probably the US cinema release as well.
Which is a shame, because I can only imagine how this movie would lose a lot if you chopped half the image off by zooming in for standard television size like you would back then.
Yeah. But it was being shown in colour with films like The Witch's Curse, which is that's the Maciste al Inferno film. Goliath Against the Giants, Valley of the Lions. Yeah, that would have been quite a fun package.
That would have been a good double feature. That would have been, you'd be getting your money's worth in that.
Yeah. Steve Reeves films in there, Cameron Mitchell, Edmund Purdom, loads of them. But yeah, so the UK reviews that I found are pretty positive, actually. The one I was just using for the plot review says that it is an amalgam of intrigue, romance, and stark villainy, which moves fast and contains many suspenseful and thrilling saber-rattling sequences. The saber rattling is a bit of a weird.
That is a weird choice there. Yeah, I think
for this film,
someone may not completely understand what that term is meant to connotate. Yeah.
The principal players never let up, and massive interiors and sweeping exteriors effectively round off the forthright costume piece. Yeah, I mean the location work is great.
It really is. Yeah.
It does look good in widescreen too.
This is, once again, as we keep saying, as we go through this season, Adrian, I would love to be able to have this on Blu-ray in a sparkling presentation to let people evaluate these movies as the fun, for lack of a better term, Saturday or Sunday afternoon entertainments that they are meant to be. They are such good little films.
And there's a lot of energy in this one. It's
Oh,
constantly moving.
oh, I know. That's another thing about it. That's one of the things that I've always admired about the Three Musketeer movies that I love is that there's very little downtime. The sequences between action scenes, and this one varies its action scenes. It's not just all sword play. There's a lot, there's different things going on all the time. And the downtime is really just giving you time to get to know some of the characters and plot and some of the plotting that's going on that's keeping everything in motion, and then you're plunged right into the next sequence of action stuff, and it's a blast. These are the kinds of movies that had me waving the big flag and hoping that we would do a season on these movies because they're underseen, underappreciated, and they seem to be a genre that is getting forgotten as time moves on. And I hope people will start paying more attention because these movies are fun, man. These are unassuming, unpretentious, but just fun adventure stories.
Yeah, absolutely. The monthly film bulletin review is slightly less friendly than the previous one, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things in it that are quite funny. Says the plot and dialogue are inconsequential, but the film achieves some amusingly absurd situations, such as scaling a castle wall with a ladder which is too short, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And some business with pea shooters and peepholes. There is a lot of pea shooter action in this movie.
Oh, I know. Porthos, that's it. That's his go-to thing to distract someone or to draw someone's attention so that they can do something. Yeah.
Is that from the books? Does he do that in the other ones? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I can't remember. Yeah.
I really do need to one day read the original Dumas novel, but my desire to read the original novel is tainted by the fact that I know how the novel was written, and it kind of makes me realize that I'm going to be reading the novel and trying to dissect it at the same time because Dumas had other writers working on it, and they would submit sections and he would rewrite them, and sometimes depending on his deadlines, because it was being published piecemeal, he would do more or less revisions to his ghostwriters.
Wow.
And so there's a part of me that feels like I'm going to read this giant novel, and as I go through it, I'm going to be like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like the previous segment. I'm going to start picking it apart critically, just trying to figure out where one piece came from in another, So I have actually stopped myself from diving into that novel several times over my life, just because I know I wish I hadn't known that before. I wish I'd read the novel and then learned that afterwards.
I didn't know that. That's weird.
Yeah. But I mean, he was very popular by the time he wrote that novel, and so it became So.
Fair enough. I just wanted to finish off with this last bit in they talk about the cast, and it says the two girls whose chief role is to provide interludes of bosom heaving between the fencing bouts do so attractively.
Why, yes, they do. They are very, very decorative.
Yeah, these are really fun movies. So I don't want to spoil any more of the plot because they need to be seen. Now, are we going to see the Musketeers again in this season? Do they crop up again in these films?
Well, it would be possible if it really will depend on whether we zig or zag.
Okay, so there were others.
Yes.
Other Musketeer films by the Italians at this time.
Certainly.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, well, just one last bit of archival research I wanted to mention. I found a listing for this film in 1966, playing in India at the what was the name of this? It was at the New Talkies Cinema in Mumbai, or Bombay as it would have been called then, I guess. And it was playing on a double bill along with The Three Stooges Go Around the World in a Daze.
Oh, that would have been a very strange double feature.
Is that just a short? I must admit I don't know much about them.
Oh no, that's a feature film.
That's a feature. Okay.
Yeah, they're on their. That's Mo and Larry with, I think, their third, possibly fourth. Utility stooge. I'm not
Right. My Stooges knowledge is pretty small, I'm afraid. But yeah, so it made it played around the world, which I think is great. So yeah, and now maybe we can do something to get it playing around the world again.
Well, I would like that. I would. Like I say, I'm really trying hard to will into existence box sets of these types of films.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's working. You just said that you've just done a commentary on a film that you podcasted about years ago, so you never know.
Yeah, but that's happened with like a dozen movies.
Yeah.
I mean, all the Paul Naschy films that I've done a commentary track on, that Troy and I have done, we podcasted about every single one of those movies before we did a commentary track on it. But yeah, there are. Maybe if I podcast about enough movies, eventually I'll be able to try to claim ownership over the reason over every Blu-ray that exists.
I did just crack open my Dr. Mabuse box set today, so
I have
I'm
not
pretty sure
yet.
we have you. You to thank for that.
I'm letting it sit there with the plastic still on it because I'm actually waiting with bated breath for the same company's Crimmy set.
Oh yeah,
and I'm probably going to do that Crimmy set first.
The Edgar Wallace one, or the Brian Edgar Wallace ones. Yeah.
Yes.
Very excited about that. But anyway, yes. So, Secret Mark of D'Artagnan. Check it out. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the notes, but you can find it easily enough, and it's really worth watching. So, thank you everybody for listening. I think we'll wrap things up there. We will be back much quicker, I promise.
Yes.
than 2 months again. But thank you for bearing with us. I just want to remind you all that we have joined the Film Stories Podcast Network. If you want to see the other podcasts they do, and there are loads, there are some really good ones, just go to filmstories.co.uk and you can find all kinds of stuff. Or I think you might be able to just browse the network podcasts on Spotify, I think. I don't really know how it works, but anyway,
sure.
The website is a good place to start. I've been listening to one of theirs recently, called about the Alien films. It's called Podmetheus, which I think
they didn't think that one. Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, but forgive them for that because it's a good podcast.
All right.
So there's lots of good ones in there. So yeah, so check those out, and we're sort of we're in with those guys now for. Still seeing what I mean. The trouble is, we joined the podcast network, and then basically, you and I stopped podcasting for 2 months. So I've been yet to fully understand what impact it's going to have on the podcast. But anyway, we'll see. But do have a look because there's some good stuff out there. We are available in all the normal places, and we've got all the usual links. Just look in the show notes. You can use a link tree. I have added a couple more T-shirts to the store. Rod, I believe you've bought one.
Yes, I had to have the Antonio Margheriti one, the Anthony Dawson T-shirt. I must represent. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I got that from the credits of Death Rage.
Oh, well, okay, I understand.
That's where I took that from. I just watched Death Rage. I was on Amazon Prime and I watched it, and then it came up. Anthony Dawson. I was like, oh yes, perfect. So I screen grabbed it, turned it into a T-shirt. I've also made an Oliver Onions one for all you D'Artagnan fans out there.
Oh, and you made a Luciano Pigozzi one. That would be Alan Collins.
Oh, I did. Yes. Yeah. Alan Collins. So if anyone has any suggestions of anything, like what's the most obscure Italian film thing you'd like on a T-shirt?
Yes, we have no interest in actually selling these T-shirts. We just want to be obscure.
Exactly. At the moment, I think we're selling on average about one a month. So,
well, yeah.
But I think it's quite fun to, to have the power now to imagine the most obscure thing and then be able to make it is quite fun.
I know, just the joy of putting these things out there in the world.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
So yes, anyone's got any requests, suggestions, I am all ears. But yeah, Rod, anything you quickly want to plug before we finish up? I know the Nashi Cast
Yeah.
has a new episode out.
We're back to podcasting full strength. Thank goodness. First up, we've got up a Beyond Nashi episode over on the Nashi Cast, where Troy and I invited Bob Sargent back onto the show, and we covered the classic Jess Franco film, The Sadistic Baron von Klaus. We babbled for a solid 2 hours, and man, did we have a lot to talk about in that movie. It's just a blast of a film.
You talked about that trilogy. I liked Troy's idea of the rock, paper, scissors with with that film and Dr. Orloff and the
Diabolical Dr. Z.
Dr. Z.
Yeah.
Or whatever we call him. And it made me think, I'm not sure, because at first when I started listening, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this one. And then I started thinking, hang on, have I seen this one? Because I know I've seen Orloff and Dr. Z. Have I seen this one as well? I'm not. They all kind of blur together. So
it's the lesser seen of the three of them, and I think that really is a shame, as I talk about in our episode. I think it's a fantastic film.
I'm not 100% sure if I have, but I'm definitely on the side of the black and white Jess Franco's. That's where I fall on those. So.
I understand. It took me years to open my mind enough to allow the brain cells to leak out and to enjoy. No, I mean to be able to enjoy a lot of the stuff that he was doing in the 70s and 80s. Now I love it all, and it's different flavors of the same mad mind. So I love it.
Yeah. No. Hey, I am all for a bit of experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a really strange film. It's the kind of film that's too weird even to podcast about, and I wouldn't really want to ask anyone else to podcast on it. But I watched the film the other day called Sweet Movie.
Oh, well.
Which is by
I know what that movie is.
Dusan Makavejev. Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I have had it described to me for 30 plus years, and I think that description was more than enough for me, to be honest.
Yeah, crikey. Yeah, that's not coming to any podcast anytime soon, but that is an interesting movie, and I'm sure Jess Franco probably enjoyed it if he saw it.
Maybe, I would assume.
And funnily enough, it did have a scene on the Eiffel Tower, so it was back in Paris again. But yeah, man, that is a freaky film. Anyway, enough. Let's finish. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for sticking with us. And we'll be back again soon with more Rapiers and Ruffles. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.